Okay, time to talk about Sing Sing. Now, basically, these next few rants I'm going to do this week are basically kind of Oscar related. I actually thought this movie was nominated for Best Picture. It wasn't, but it did receive some nominees for like Best Screenplay and other ones, but yeah. And maybe you haven't heard of this film, but I'm going to recommend this film because I think it is a pretty good film. And it's about a subject that no one really likes to talk about, prison life. Yeah, it's called Sing Sing for a reason. I actually thought it was called Sing Sing because it was going to be a musical or something like that, or a musical that takes place in prison. You know, kind of like the one they did at the end of The Producers. But no, it's not that at all. It's actually quite a realistic portrayal of what I believe is prison life, and I really kind of enjoyed this movie because of that. Now, here's the thing. The plot of this movie is really just it's kind of been done before, where characters all come together that are all different, and they're doing a performance. Now, generally, you know how these films are done, where you kind of see how the number is supposed to go, or you see how the play is supposed to go. They talk about the play, you see them doing rehearsals of the play, and by the end of the film, you usually see the play performed. I'd have to get into spoilers, but I'll do that later on why. Maybe I've already spoiled it a bit too early here. But now here's the thing about this movie. It is about essentially an acting program that is happening in Sing Sing prison. And that's kind of interesting. I kind of thought, okay, that's kind of cool. And here's the thing that I've noticed about films that take place in prison. You will usually get one of two extremes. Usually a prison movie will focus on how terrible it is and how the people behind bars are essentially animals and they're all just trying to survive, and the guards are being real jerks to them and stuff like that. You usually see that in certain films. And then you'll do the other side, which is like they show prison as just essentially kind of just like our own life, where essentially you just get routine, and more routine. And yeah, they usually try and downplay any of the aspects you hear about, say, stabbings or gangs or anything like that. And that's a pretty rare example. I can only think of a few films like that where they actually show the prison like that. I've met people that have been to prison, and many of them say like, hey, for the most part, prison is, let's put it this way. You know that episode of The Office where they talk about that guy who was in prison and he actually says that, hey, it wasn't really that bad. And I don't know. I don't really know how it is. I'd have to actually go to prison to find out what it is really like, and I don't really want to do a crime to do that. So yeah. And hey, I also don't want to talk badly about people that are in prison right now and stuff like that, because I think we all know the justice system is flawed, and I think we all know there are people in prison that shouldn't be in prison and stuff like that. I'm not sure if Sing Sing really addresses this issue. I'm not really certain how it's really addressing this issue, because the main character of this thing, I believe, is essentially in prison for crimes that it sounds like he's quite innocent of. So yeah, I'm not really certain how they and I don't know if I'm not really certain if the film actually really addresses some of these things, now that I'm really thinking about this film. But anyway, one thing I do think is kind of interesting is we see this main character who's kind of working with this acting group, and what's funny is also, I did not think the film was going to go this direction. One of the actors of this particular acting group, you actually see a scene where he goes up to somebody and threatens them. And I didn't think this film would go this direction. And I also didn't think that we were supposed to really... when I see this guy essentially bully another prisoner, that definitely says like, okay, I'm not supposed to like this guy, right? But here's the thing. You see him in other scenes and you realize like, okay, this guy isn't so bad, right? And... I guess that's kind of what I'm supposed to feel on this. And now I'm told that this film deals with a troupe, or an acting troupe, that really existed. And a lot of the actors that were in this film were actually in this acting troupe. So I don't know how they filmed this film. I guess they must have, I mean, I'm guessing that they probably used a lot of sets for this thing, but I mean, if they filmed in the actual prison of Sing Sing, that's kudos. I mean, they actually brought in a film crew to do this. I imagine that might have been kind of interesting. Now, at the beginning, they say Sing Sing is a minimum security prison, but hey, a lot of the stuff that looked, well, I mean, you definitely don't want to spend time in there, is what was going on. So the premise of this thing is that they want to make this play, and they want to make a play that they have written, and the play they end up going with is some sort of weird kind of, it apparently is a comedy, and it's all about time travel and stuff like that. And this is what I was mentioning earlier about when you see a film with a plot like this, is that where characters are in a play or something like that, you're always seeing scenes, and you're always you're seeing like little snippets of it, and then usually by the time you get to the end of the film, they perform the actual play in full, or at least you're getting the stuff that is really making a lot of sense. But I have to say, and this is going to kind of spoil it here, you don't really get that. You don't. I think they actually just show like a brief scene of the play, or actually I'm not even certain what play they really went with, because they were talking about doing this one play about somebody who wants to be a record producer or something like that, and then they talked about doing this other time travel / comedy thing, and I'm not really certain what direction that they actually kind of wanted to go, which is theater life, really. There sometimes you just make changes at the last minute and stuff like that, and there are entire productions that are done like pretty much last minute. What can you say? So yeah, that's kind of how theater life is, and so we get to see this main character who has kind of a, and this is where I'm going to get into spoilers in here. This main character has a roommate who kind of dies, and then he kind of has a little meltdown in the performance. And this is the type of character that you didn't expect to have this sort of adverse emotional reaction. So at the end of this thing, and you might remember that I was talking about this one prisoner who bullies another prisoner, you actually get to see this bully step up and actually talk to this one guy. It says like, hey man, you know, you had something like this, you had an outburst like this, and he's actually encouraging him to come back to the theater program after losing such hope. And this is kind of interesting to me. It's really good to see a film where men are essentially just you know, separated from civilization, and that they still treat each other with respect. And this is what this theater group does. There's a really interesting scene, I think, that happens later on in this film, where this guy is talking about the death of his dog and how he's kind of using that as kind of a theater experience. It's a really heartfelt scene that honestly kind of comes out of nowhere, but is really, really very good. So I'm going to just sort of recommend this film because, I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like prison films have been kind of, I wouldn't say done to death, but usually I expect certain things in them, and Sing Sing gave you some of these things about showing what prison life is like and how it is just not very good, of course, and you know, and no one really wants to go there. And maybe it's, I don't know. I have to say, I'm gonna conclude with this, that if prison life is really bad, then I guess that keeps us from following the law because we don't want to end up there. So just like, you know, and but hey, I mean, I have to admit there is no place I would want to go to that would be prison. I can tell you that much. In other words, like, prison would be the last place I would ever want to go for any particular reasons. And I've had nightmares where, you know, where I'm about to go to prison or something like that. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I've never done really any crimes or anything like that that would, you know, make me do that. But hey, that's a place I don't want to go because I know exactly I'd be at the bottom of the food chain on that thing. So yeah, and this is a film talking about how men can support each other on this. So anyway, go see this film. I mean, yeah, it's got a great, it's well written. Just see it. Okay, this is Mark from the Geek Church signing off.